Chapter 3 Teach to the Best. It seemed every day that the traffic was becoming thicker along the vein of Interstate 35 that headed north into the veritable heart of Austin. The notion of automotive cholesterol was one not far from the minds of many drivers, and that shared sentiment, spoken or silent, may be a modern proof of existence of the greater mind. With the expanding population, many people sought residential refuge in the areas south of the city's center, making the infrastructure of multi-lane highways in the region strain under the burden of thousands upon thousands of tons of vehicles. Such weighed heavily upon the psyche of those individuals who were simultaneously subjected to and a component of the growing, slow-moving traffic that formed like clockwork every single day. Katerina knew she could minimize her contribution to the mess by carpooling with others, yet she also knew that her experience of such in the past did not lessen the commute time, and had the terrible result of removing her ability to decompress herself in the shielded environment of her own car. She had spent too much of her life, she thought, being an example to others at the cost of her own comfort. She had worked diligently to discover her station in life, in some cases feeling as though she had to work harder than others who reached goals similar to her own. As an African American woman in contemporary American society, simply participating in the dominant culture was difficult because she was regularly relegated by the gender and racial stereotypes so readily adopted by the mindset of what seemed to be the entirety of the population. Back when she had begun her collegiate career, she was met with backlash from the community she had grown up within. In adolescence, she experienced it first in the form of poignant jealousy manifested in the notion that she was told to not pride herself on her ability to take on customs, language, and social norms from white academic America. At the same time, she also felt a reluctant acceptance of herself from those in the academic circles, those who regarded her presence as uniquely special and thereby gave her greater care than other students, thus insinuating that her presence was due to a means of seeing equality between people of different skin colors and not due to her merits as an intellectual. The former felt abrasive, and the latter felt patronizing. Having dealt with the frustrations that came to her from all sides during her education, the traffic situation with which she found daily contention was but a simple breeze, and some mornings she did not even rely on the radio for distraction. She turned her radio on as the parallel lines of cars and trucks crept slowly along. She flipped quickly from the public radio station to the local grassroots station, and, finding nothing all too redeeming or distracting on either, pressed the button to shut off the radio. She hummed to herself and returned to her self-reflection. Her family was overtly supportive. Her mother's side took great pride in her attending college, seeing that she had her necessities met, as she was the first on record in the family to venture into the realm of tertiary education. Her father's side was supportive as well, yet her uncle, her father's older brother, had attended and achieved his bachelor's in history from an historically African American college. Her father's brother was a great inspiration to her, and she found a great fondness for many of her memories of him, regaling her with tales of history he had committed to memory. Information he had learned to interpret with biting insight. Uncle Finn had attempted graduate school, yet fell short of funds before he could attain his master's degree. It was a sore subject for him, as he had been led to believe that a specific fellowship would be opened to him to pay for that portion of his education only to see the placement be awarded to a younger student who, he swore, was whiter than bleach and Hispanic in name only. Phineas, given to direct comparison with his academic rival, noted that his own affinity for the French language was not sought after as much as his rival's proficiency with the Spanish language, or so the department chair had explained to him. Yet he could not help but to interpret it as merely the excuse to validate the entire program by having on record that, indeed, they considered an African American candidate, although found another candidate more suitable for the position. Her uncle had vowed to return to academia to achieve his master's degree, and gave Katerina advice when she began her venture. "Give 'em Tarleton's quarter," he told her, calling her memory back to the American War for Independence. "Whatever leeway or opportunity they give you based on your skin color," he elaborated, "take it and pay no mind to those who would speak down of you, those whose hushed voices might make their way to your ear as they say nasty things meant only to bring you down. You take what opportunity they give you, and you use it to ferociously prove that you are more than capable of hitting the target they set for you. Don't liken yourself to what they think of you, because they only know their worth by comparison. They'd be afraid to see you improve because that means they are lesser. So do not return ill words. Do not fall to their level. Continue to seek improvement of yourself, and that will be your reply. If they feel worse of themselves for your success, then keep succeeding. Give them no mercy that they would not give to you." Tarleton's quarter. Her memory of herself and herself that remembered said in unison. Refusing to let the agitation of the traffic infuse into her thoughts and well-being, she pondered further her current state of living. What brought her here beyond asphalt and well-honed automotive engineering? With help from her family, she found her stride and completed her undergrad work in 3.5 years with the intention of making the financial burden less on her family. Within 2 months of completing her BA in history, she had applied to 6 fellowships and prepared to take the GRE exam. Accepted into 2, she took the one that kept her closest to family in Texas, and set about 4 years of studying while working as an associate instructor for the university and working in retail during off times to cover expenses. She very rarely ever allowed herself to watch television due to her suspicion that the allure of the culture propounded by that medium ensnared greater minds to its trap of non-productivity. It would not be allowed to grip the great thinker she considered herself to be. She did also forego attending movies that were not free showings offered by the university, avoided social media outside of what was needed as a channel through which to receive emergency notifications, did not dine out even when offered the dating scenario by some would-be suitor or another, despite how she may have felt an attraction to the idea of the offer. She allowed herself no more than 2 luxury beverages each week, and those never in a social setting, but at home in her small campus housing apartment, to help her get past the unnerving frustration brought about by grading papers from students for whom she tried her best not to hate for what she perceived to be their academic incompetence due to the social privilege provided by the color of their skin. Her discipline was bolstered when she got word at the end of her second year that part of the funds she used to survive while working towards her goal came from her Uncle Finn, who continued his appointment as a high school teacher in the northern Panhandle district where, he was convinced, he was granted job security because his was the only face darker than an eggshell in the faculty body of the school. Her discipline suited her well when she, in her 4th year, was told that she was a prime candidate for the university's doctoral program. Thinking she might fall victim to a situation similar to that which befell Uncle Finn, she applied, but did not let herself lose focus. She prepared for her comprehensive exam and applied to school districts in and around her home region. Her first choice seemed promising, and she imagined her triumphant return to Del Valle High School as a master of education and leading the history department to greater heights than they had ever anticipated. She turned on the radio, quickly switched between the same 2 stations, and then returned her attention to the road while thinking back. Her memories brought her much elation and slight embarrassment. The faculty member who told her about the opportunity in the doctoral program had requested an in-office meeting. With reservations about what the meeting would be, she confirmed and attended. She now recalls it as one that altered the course of her life considerably. The professor had taken to thinking of Katerina as her academic protégée, which was new information to the protégée herself. Selina told her that the work she did, which was an example used to guide the rest of the associate instructors in the program, was second only to her near-perfected, if not mechanically methodical, work ethic. That which most other students strove to become at their best, she manifested regularly, and Selina appreciated Katerina's efforts and accomplishments in a manner more than Katerina had been aware of. Selina had taken off her glasses and asked Katerina how many other supervisors there were in this department. Katerina knew of none other than Selina. Exactly, Selina told her. Other departments throughout the university have multiple supervisors for fewer AIs than are in this department, but I have to hold the line and do the work of what should be 3 other people, and the reason is not least likely due to what is on my chest and between my thighs, as much as it is due to my last name and family heritage. She sat silently while staring at Katerina in order to make the statement clear. With only the slightest of a nod did Katerina give recognition of the clear statement. So when I see your work ethic and ability, and see it rattle the nerves of the department chair and his cronies, I'm inclined to want to help you cultivate your full potential. She returned her glasses to her gaunt face. So I offer my recommendation to you and only you, although you are the only one of the internal candidates who has not asked me for a recommendation. I will also be using your example as the standard by which to judge with great scrutiny any external applicants that arrive, although I do not imagine there will be more than the 2 we have already received, and they are lacking greatly by comparison to some of our lesser candidates. Your flattery is more than I can process. I greatly appreciate your vote of confidence, Katerina had said. Yet I know better than to assume the best outcome when it is left to the powers that be. Power is persuaded easily by that which appears to serve its interest, Selina immediately replied. Yet I understand your hesitation. She gestured that the meeting was reaching its close. I doubt, however, that you would want someone else gaining the benefits of appearing to serve the interests of the powers that be. Katerina stood up. Kat, Selina said, playing to the familiar. If you send me an email requesting my recommendation, you will get it. If you don't, I will not recommend any other candidate, but I will be forced to voice my selection out of the pool of persons less qualified than you." Selina turned her attention to her computer screen and delivered the last line of the meeting without looking at Katerina. "That is all. I will be watching until the deadline closes this Friday." Of course, Katerina had composed and sent the email that afternoon, and such a recommendation was given that her placement in the program hinged only on her comps, which she aced the following week. The doctoral program was similar to the master's program in the instruction she gave to undergrad students, but the stipend allowed her to live without relying on money from her family, albeit by the humble standards to which she had accustomed herself to live. Her means notwithstanding, she lived comfortably while she formulated her dissertation. She was given greater and greater responsibility in the university, and the time flew by. After her defense of her dissertation, she walked out knowing that she was about to be known as Dr. Cook for the rest of her life. At that point, she felt an uncertain embarrassment for her choices that followed. She was offered a position as a supervising lecturer at the university, one that would make the department she and Selina would captain together a formidable academic strongpoint for the university. Yet she was struck with the notion of working under Selina for the rest of her career, of never implementing some of her ideas as freely as she otherwise would, and felt a strange sense of obligation to her Uncle Finn to seek some form of karmic retribution for what he had experienced. Much to the surprise of Selina, Dr. Cook accepted a position at a very prestigious K-8 private school that paid the same as the position offered to her by the university. Although it was never communicated in any form, Katerina knew Selina felt betrayed. These painful reminiscences had distracted her, and she shut her car off when in the parking lot of her place of employment. She reached over to her passenger seat and grabbed her lunch bag, out of which rolled an orange. She lurched to grab it, wondering how one piece of produce could be so troublesome.